The world's richest man is in the middle of a lawsuit arguing that the NLRB is unconstitutional altogether, though Trump already fired enough members to shut that one down too, because, you know, they hate the
lords and peasants sort of thing.
Trump has continued his assault on working people, those who work for the government and those who are served by it. We're going to go through some of those discrete actions from the last week, but Musk spoke at some event, I think in India, where he laid out sort of the motivating drive behind this attack, and it really lays bare, you know, the foolishness of this whole thing and the motivating ideology that goes along with this sort of stuff. We're going to go ahead and open the phone lines. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number, 844-899-8857. We'll begin taking calls as soon as we wrap up with this. But here's this clip from Elon Musk in India.
Support and direction of President Trump. We are reducing the size of the bureaucracy, getting rid of excess regulatory regulations, and there's also so many agencies and regulatory authorities that they actually step on each other's feet. It's kind of like having a sports game where there are too many referees on the field, like more referees than players at times. Now that would be a silly game, you know, if the players can't pass the ball without hitting a referee, you know. But it's kind of getting to that point in the U.S. So there's roughly 450 federal agencies of one kind or another. That's more agencies. That's almost an average of 2 agencies per year since the formation of the United States. So, I mean, how many agencies do you really need to run a country? 99? Not 450, that's for sure.
So there's did he mentioned the things about referees in that, right? Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I did hear that. He ended it with that 425 agencies comment, and that is just such a silly thing to be preoccupied with. For one, there's no definition of what an agency is within the federal government. There are like 14 or 15 departments, actual cabinet-level departments, but many lists of federal agencies include sub-departments as their own agencies, including the list of federal agencies on Wikipedia. Take the Department of Defense. Wikipedia lists the nearly 300 offices and commands and agencies within the department as separate agencies. Just the U.S. Army, which is only one branch of the U.S. military, has 43 sub-offices. And so which one do you want to cut or, you know, bring into Excel? Look at this U.S. Army commands. This is just a few of them. The United States Army Training and Doctrine Command, the United States Army Reserve Command, the U.S. Army Direct Reporting Unit, the Arlington National Cemetery, the U.S. Army Acquisition Support Center, the Civilian Human Resources Association, the United States Army Corps of Engineers. How would it contribute to the efficient execution of the mission for, say, the Corps of Engineers to do the work of the Army Training and Doctrine Command? And what would it even mean to get rid of some of these different agencies? It's just so ridiculous to be preoccupied with the number of, you know, like there are not 425 tasks within that the federal government does that are discrete enough that there could be an efficiency gain from creating a sub-department or agency or office dedicated just to that discrete task? Like, you don't think there are 425 tasks that the federal government does that would create an efficiency gain for? I mean, that's insane. That's just crazy. I've been part of reorganizations before. I've been part of organizations where we merge branches or different departments. I've been part of reorganizations where we split organization or where we split programs and departments and offices and things like that. And like sometimes that's effective and sometimes it's not. But the idea that like Elon Musk heard the number 425 and thought to compare that number to the number of years that America has been around, rather than, I don't know, the number of employees that are administered or that are employed by the federal government, which is like 3 million, or maybe how many people there are in the U.S. That are served by the federal government, which is 334 million. It's just so stupid. And like when you hear things like that, such shallow and kind of silly analysis of problems, diagnosis of problems, and prognosis for solutions, it should really kind of trigger your skepticism about the depth with which this person engages in really anything. There was another comment that he made in there about referees, that there are so many regulations and so many regulators that that sometimes you got too many cooks in the kitchen. You just got people are just there's just so much folks going on that it's difficult for anybody to do anything. Okay, well, let's take a look at workplace safety. Right, that's a role that the government has a reasonable hand in, right? I think that most people agree that the government should have some role in enforcing workplace safety standards in workplaces. In fact, that is a big reason. That's one of the big reasons that people say we don't need unions anymore, is because the government does it. So we don't need unions. We got the government. Okay. Well, in Alabama, in fiscal year 23, there were 24 federal workplace safety investigators. There were 0 investigators for workplace safety from the state. There are 2.28 million workers in the state of Alabama. It would take the 24 federal workplace safety investigators 160 years to visit each business one time. One time! 160 years. How can you say that there's too much regulation? I mean, we have Republicans literally introducing legislation to abolish the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which would presumably be supported by Elon Musk, almost certainly. How do you come to that conclusion? We have 24 federal workplace safety investigators in Alabama for 2 million workers, okay? And we have been tracking, we do the segment called Boss Watch. We take a look at, violations of the law by employers, particularly in the South. And one was this Decatur business that manufactures GE appliances. In June of this year, a worker died there because of employer negligence, according to the U.S. Department of Labor and the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Literally 2 weeks after this company in Decatur, Alabama, was fined approximately $200,000 for being responsible for the death of a worker, somebody else had to go to the hospital because of a workplace accident. And unlike contemporary reporting from the time when the worker died in June or July of 2024, where OSHA investigators were immediately responding and immediately on the scene and immediately investigating, contemporary reporting of this has so far not mentioned OSHA at all. There has been no indication that OSHA is involved in investigating this new safety incident at this Decatur business, who, again, remember, literally only 2 weeks ago was fined $200,000 for being responsible for the death of one of its workers. We have too many cooks in the kitchen. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Okay? But that's like the ideology motivating this entire DOGE thing. It's all motivated by shallow, simple, nonsensical reasoning and a misunderstanding of the way the world works, and also being a billionaire and wanting to be able to move through the world in exactly the way that you want without having to care for, the lowly lives of working people, because you should not have to concern yourself with that. But that's the motivating ideology of the DOGE thing. And More Perfect Union had a really good video about how DOGE has not been transparent and how there are serious conflicts of interest with Elon Musk and what he is doing with DOGE. Let's play this clip from More Perfect Union.
When Elon Musk was campaigning for Donald Trump, he made one key promise about Doge.
We're going to be very open and transparent and be very clear about this is what we're doing. Here are the issues.
But Doge has been shrouded in secrecy. Musk wouldn't even disclose who works for him. It took reporters, unions, and lawsuits to reveal which young, unqualified racists were digging through sensitive government information. And Musk's own financial disclosure form is concealed from the public.
Why does Elon's financial disclosure remain secret?
Because nobody's looking at that.
So what is Musk hiding about his work at Doge? Here are 3 conflicts of interest that Musk doesn't want you to know about. Number 1, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
The agency was created by Congress after the 2008 financial crisis and is designed to shield consumers from predatory banks and lenders.
In late January, Musk's X signed a deal with Visa to create a digital wallet. He wants people to do their banking on X, invest on X, and pay for things on X. The partnership would have been overseen by the CFPB, which in November finalized new rules to prevent digital wallet fraud. Now, well, good luck if you get scammed. Number 2, the FAA.
Tonight, the dramatic images, the midair explosion of SpaceX's massive Starship rocket.
I mean, the Federal Aviation Administration said they're going to investigate this. SpaceX won't be able to launch any more rockets until that investigation is complete.
To be clear, those clips were about 2 different major SpaceX disasters and just a taste of the trouble that Musk has had with the FAA over the past few years. In September, the agency fined SpaceX over $630,000 over a few other launch issues, and Elon called for the administrator to be fired. FAA admin Michael Whitaker stepped down on the eve of the inauguration. Planes keep crashing, but at least SpaceX doesn't have to worry about any oversight. Number 3, the Department of Labor.
Unreported injuries, excessive hours, abusive conditions, over 100 ambulance calls.
The log shows that employees were being electrically shocked when plugging in sump pumps into a portable generator.
Musk's companies have been prolific labor law violators and regularly face inquiries on safety, discrimination, and free speech.
I disagree with the idea of unions. I just don't like anything which creates kind of a lords and peasants sort of thing.
Tesla, SpaceX, and X all face NLRB charges for union busting. Now the world's richest man is in the middle of a lawsuit arguing that the NLRB is unconstitutional altogether, though Trump already fired enough members to shut that one down too, because, they hate the
lords and peasants sort of thing.
So if we're to believe Donald Trump when he says,
"Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything."
Prove it to us. Stop hiding and make everything public.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
So they spoke about conflicts of interest there, and that's all obvious. There are more, but I think the point is made, so I won't elaborate on that. But I do want to elaborate on the transparency thing, because Musk is clearly lying about how he's being so transparent. He's pointing to his Twitter activity, and his Twitter activity around the DOGE thing is not transparency. It's just a lunatic lying and conveying half-truths. I want to give you 2 stories to illustrate that. First, $50 million for condoms in Gaza. Just straight up, didn't happen. Just did not happen. And he has not taken down that claim from Twitter or anything like that. He's admitted that it's, may not have been true. But there's when confronted with that, there was just no, interest in reflecting on why he believed that. Where nobody even knows where that number came from. For one, that will be an insane number of condoms, right? Just think about it. Do some back of the envelope math. There are 2 million people in Gaza, and and condoms, if you buy them, if you buy them in bulk at just like 100, I looked up the prices this morning. It's like 30 cents. If you bought $50 million worth of condoms, you could probably get them for lower than 30 cents per condom. But let's say it was like 20 or 30 cents per condom. That would be something like hundreds of millions of condoms. Why would anybody want to buy hundreds of millions of condoms for 2 million people? That just, in 1 year, remember. That's just crazy. That's crazy. And the idea that there was not any more kind of investigation into that before you just throw it out into the public, that is crazy. That's crazy. Also, the USAID spent $8 million worldwide for condoms in 2023. And, maybe you think that's too much. Maybe you think it's not enough. I don't know. But how much money does it save us and the world on the back end by stopping unwanted pregnancies and stopping the spread of STDs across the world? I think probably more than $8 million worth of condoms if you were able to stop unwanted pregnancies and the spread of STDs. I think that's, probably worth it, maybe. I don't know. But there's just no commitment to the truth. No commitment to the truth. Here's the second one. Direct quote from his tweet. Reuters was literally paid by the federal government for, quote, large-scale social deception. Just simply not true. For one, Thomson Reuters Special Services was paid by the Department of Defense, not the news outlet. It was a Trump-era contract from 2018, and it was for researching defenses against deception, including, phishing attempts from people looking like attractive women while service members are overseas. Maybe that's a valuable use of resources. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But it was not the Department of Defense literally paying Thomson Reuters Special Services to deceive the public on a large scale. That's just... And he hasn't retracted that claim. And so, every single... There's... And no proof for any of the claims that they make. Also, this specific one was already publicly available. You can just go and look and see that this Thomson Reuters Special Services, you can see the contract. You can just go and see it, right? And so you should not believe, frankly, anything that he puts out on Twitter, because there's no commitment to the truth, and there is little ability to verify what he's saying. So it's not transparent, no commitment to the truth, et cetera, right? Conflicts of interest, all this kind of stuff. And now let's talk about the effects, some of the effects on working people. Thousands of probationary workers were let go across the government, more just working for the National Nuclear Security Administration, 325 workers, than every single trans athlete in the country in the NCAA. 10. Okay? That is crazy to let go of more people working to administer our nuclear security than there are trans athletes across the country. They were part of the 1,200 to 2,000 layoffs at the Department of Energy. There were also 400 workers let go at the Environmental Protection Agency, 1,000 workers let go at the Department of the Interior, 5,200 workers let go at the Department of Health and Human Services, 100 workers let go at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, 2,400 workers at the U.S. Forest Service, 10% of its entire staff, 100 workers at the Small Business Administration, all probationary workers at NASA Ames in California. Huge effects on these people's lives. These peoples who had wanted to serve the public, who had wanted to serve their government. It's just so gross what's going on. And so the effect on federal workers is huge, obviously, but our inability to do our jobs the people who've been literally let go or the people who are having, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the new acting director, Russ Vought, literally told all remaining employees to just stop work on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Elon Musk wants to return the entire budget of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to the taxpayers. Guess what? The budget of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for this year is approximately $700 million. Every year, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau returns $1.4 billion to consumers. That is not a good return on investment to return to the taxpayers $700 million when you could be getting $1.4 billion. And that's also not taking into account the number of the amount of money that is saved on the consumer end from companies not engaging in scams in the first place because they know there's a cop on Wall Street there within the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, right? So $1.4 billion every single year returned directly to consumers from the corporations that scam them, plus who knows how many billions of dollars every year in scams that are not done because of the CFPB. And yet Russ Vought has just totally stopped all of that organization from working, despite the fact that this is a congressionally created thing on a bipartisan basis in the immediate aftermath of the 2008 financial crash. The UAW put out a statement on the cuts to the National Institute of Health. The Trump administration's decision to slash NIH funding is a gut punch to scientific progress, economic growth, and the fight against deadly diseases. Cutting research on cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's isn't efficient. It's economically reckless and inhumane. These cuts will shut down promising medical breakthroughs, slam the brakes on clinical trials, destroy jobs, and gut university research programs where thousands of UAW members across the country work every day to advance life-saving discoveries. Taking a step back from the press release for a second, slamming the brakes on clinical trials. This is something that's happened already with USAID. Thousands of people across the country have just been left hanging in the middle of medical trials. They volunteered for experimental treatment from the U.S. government, and the U.S. government is just leaving them with experimental medications and medical devices in their bodies without following up with them, without removing it from them, without taking them out of, just leaving them hanging. Just leaving them hanging. This is affecting on just a huge scale. Back to the UAW. Trump claims this will save money, but the truth is every NIH dollar invested in research generates 2.5 times its value in economic activity. Gutting NIH funding is not savings, it's sabotage. That's absolutely true. And market fundamentalists, people who worship at the feet of the market, don't recognize that the vast majority of medical breakthroughs begin with federal government funding. And the federal government, studies things that may not have an immediate, or the government might be willing to study things that might not have an immediate economic value, but could produce results in the future. I mean, people are throwing out these NIH studies about, why would I want to study the spit of lizards or whatever? Well, guess what? That study, specifically, the spit of lizards, led to the creation of Ozempic, which has been hugely beneficial for millions of Americans. There was another one that was some kind of, studying animals or bugs or something that led to the creation of the mRNA vaccine, which has saved millions of lives, right? And so, just because you look at something and say, I have no idea how this would, impact anything. Well, you're not a scientist, right? I mean, you're not a scientist, so that's not your job, okay? But if you really want to go and investigate, go and investigate and actually do the research instead of just reading the top line incredulously and not understanding what's going on. But the federal government and the public sector has the resources and the ability to invest in these base level investigations into the natural world that the private sector in research and development might not be willing to do because it immediately needs to turn a profit. Otherwise, the private sector is not going to do it, right? The internet began from investments within the Department of Defense. I mean, farmers have been affected. This from Farm Progress. Resnick is a farmer who owns Butterbee Farms, a flower farm in Hartford County, Maryland. About a year ago, she signed a contract with the USDA's Rural Energy for America program to install solar panels. Per the agreement, Resnick received half of the promised funding up front. She would receive the remainder of the funding once the work was completed. As of January 1st, her solar panels were installed and functioning. Resnick's contract called for her to receive the balance of her allotted funding so she could pay the solar installation company for its work. That expected payment never arrived in her bank account. There are farmers all across the country who are dealing with stuff like that because of Trump. I mean, it is just so much, and we're going to continue to see stuff like this. I mean, the University of Alabama in Birmingham has been affected. Just on a massive scale, this kind of stuff is going to be really detrimental.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how it's good for the economy and good for consumption when thousands and thousands of people with decent jobs, right? Not extravagant jobs, they're public sector, but decent paying jobs with decent benefits. When those folks lose their jobs and therefore their purchasing power, I'm not sure how that actually helps the community. And that's before you even look at, like you said, the services that are being provided in many cases. So it's, yeah, I don't understand it. It does feel like a sabotage. To me, it feels like, you know, the wealthy elites are really just taking the gloves off. And, you know, it's been a long-term project of the far right to roll us back to the Gilded Age. And we already have Gilded Age levels of inequality in terms of the concentration of wealth. And we've seen, you know, over the last several decades, wages have been stagnant while wealth continues to funnel to the top. Taxes have been slashed for the wealthy and corporations. And even that, not enough. It's just not enough. Record levels of inequality, and they want more. They want more, and they want to sabotage what little we have left of the social contract, what little we have left of, you know, the New Deal order. You know, it's a real shame. And I think it's up to all working people to remember that an injury to one is an injury to all. And whether it's a federal worker, whether it's an immigrant, whether it's a, you know, trans person, whoever it is, an injury to one is an injury to all. That's really our mantra as a labor movement. We believe that because the vast majority of us have more in common with each other than we do with Elon Musk or Donald Trump or any of these kind of people. We're different. We have a different relationship to the economy and to production and to wealth and to power. And our power comes from coming together and uniting. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to stick up for the federal workers who are losing their jobs and for everyone else who's been, you know, negatively impacted.
Exactly. I saw a comment in the chat about studying shrimp on a treadmill. So I just Googled it. I was like, what is that? Because remember, studying lizard spit is how we got Ozempic. And there was something else that if you read it in the most uncharitable kind of way and you don't do any kind of research into what's going on, there was some similar thing for the genesis of mRNA stuff. So I just Googled shrimp on a treadmill. This has apparently been going around for a long time. This is an article from 2011. So this is a very old talking point. But there was something that the spokesperson or the scientist talked about how the Senate's report was misleading, and it suggests that much money was spent on seeing how long a shrimp can run on a treadmill, which was totally out of context. The scientist said the first treadmill was built by a colleague from scraps and was basically free. The second was fancier and cost $1,000. The money went to a lot of different research that he and his colleagues did on economically important seafood species and the way that they react to water quality. So the treadmill part, and this is again, like just like last week, I spent 5 seconds on Google and I found out millions of dollars did not go to shrimp on a treadmill. It was part of a larger study about how seafood reacts to water quality, and the treadmill part of it was to see how their bodies react to different water qualities. That seems like something that's worth knowing. How does seafood react to water quality? That seems like something that's worth knowing. And if the treadmill costs $1,000, that doesn't seem unreasonable, right? And so as part of a larger study about water quality and its effect on seafoods, seems like shrimp on a treadmill might be a reasonable thing to look at. And that's why, you know, the DOGE Twitter thing is so stupid and misleading, because all it does is tweet out the headlines, and you never see actually, well, what's the bigger point of it? Because newsflash, most people in the government, like most people in the private sector, and like most people generally, are also thinking like normal people. Normal people, right? And most people are not going to do things that are just completely ridiculous. Absolutely, completely ridiculous, okay? So if you hear something and you immediately think, that just does not sound like something that a thinking person would do, maybe spend 5 seconds on Google.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.